Welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I am your host, Rob Gauthier, the ET Whisperer. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is a part of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Any ideas expressed by the guest, myself, or commenters may not necessarily reflect the same opinions of the Enlightenment Evolution Network. Enlightenment defined. It is the state of giving or receiving greater knowledge and understanding about a certain subject or situation. Evolution defined. The gradual development of something, especially from a simple to more complex form. So what is Enlightenment Evolution? The state of giving and receiving greater knowledge as we develop from a simple to more complex human being living on Earth for our soul's experience. Welcome now and join us as we explore our Enlightenment Evolution Hour together. The Enlightenment Evolution Hour is simulcast live every Wednesday at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific from the Enlightenment Evolution Hour page, Matrix Minds Facebook page, and the ET Whisper YouTube channel. It is also redistributed from the Forbidden Knowledge News Network and Conscious Awakening Network. Hey everybody, welcome to the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I'm your host, Rob Gauthier. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Welcome. It is the 14th, the wonderful American holiday of Valentine's, which some people see as just a wonderful complex of money-making scams. Other people see it as a wonderful, dedicated time to love the loved ones and be with the loved ones. Take it how you want it, but it is that day in history, and we're here today, guys. We have a very, very great guest tonight, a very special guest, Heather Green. We're going to be talking to her in just a few minutes, and now, to some of your excitement and others' dismay, we do have announcements for the day. We'll start up with show announcements. There's not any guest that I have in the front of my mind, or I have my calendar in front of me. I had to get here last minute tonight. But there'll be a show every week, and when we have the guests, we'll bring them in, and we do announce those as soon as we can, usually at least a few days before. Network announcements. You can still go see Out There Talk with Valiant himself over on Instagram Live at Out There Talk, and you can go there every Tuesday and Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 8:59 p.m. Eastern Time, or Pacific Time, and you can go there and watch the Instagram Live, and he has the archive playbacks on his Instagram channel. Go check it out. I've been on there. Kalina's been on there. Many of the guests that we've had have gone on to that show and have been a part of that, and it's really an amazing show, all things that are out there. As far as the ET Whisper announcements, as I told you guys last week, obviously, I didn't make it to the Conscious Life Expo. Apologies for those. Family thing happened, which led me not to, which is great. My son Jeremy could have died if I would not have been here. His bladder just stopped working, so we had to take him to the ER. It's a whole thing on itself, but he's doing all right now. We're still waiting to get him in. He's going to have a procedure done to see what's going on, which will happen hopefully in the next 4 to 6 months, but they intervened to keep him well until then. So obviously fate called me away from that. What's not going to be called away from me is my Sedona trip here in March. The event with Daryl Anka, Wendy Kennedy, our dear friend who was on last week, Sean Swanson. An amazing, amazing event. I'm going to be there. It's going to be wonderful. After that, we have the little Marian Life Expo, which is in Mount Shasta. Reuben Langdon and his people created this beautiful space. And I'm going to be presenting there, as well as Wendy Kennedy, as well as Jamie Price, who was a guest a few weeks back on our show, who's an amazing lady. It's going to be bananas. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a great event, and it will be live streamed, and it will be in person, and also the one coming up in March. I didn't realize this, but that's going to be live streamed too. So everything that's done in the main building will be live streamed out. That means you can catch my channeling, you can catch Daryl's channeling, you can catch all these people's channeling if you play a part of that online experience, and you can do it from the comfort of your own home. All that information's on my website. Also, I have another event that will be announced very soon. It's in Connecticut, and it's going to be in uh, July, while the Lumerian Life Expo will be in June 20th to 24th, and the Connecticut will be in July, and then August I will be in New York State with Jim Charles from Human Colonies and his group of people, and more things coming. The channel panel is going to be announcing something huge, very, very big in the next couple of weeks. And because you guys are great, I'm going to just give you a little clue on that one. Daryl Anka is going to be joining us for the 2025 channel panel, as is Lisa Royal Holt, as is Jamie Price, as is myself, as is Daniel Scranton, as is Kalina Angel, and many more to be announced very soon. Big stuff happening there, and more channelers are going to be added. We're going to have 3 days and up to 30 channelers at that event. We've already got some anxious letters from channelers who are our friends. We're doing it in waves. We have to do waves of 10, and the first waves are the people who we've already communicated with and are finalizing, and the second and third waves are coming in the next couple months. This is almost a year away, so we've got lots of time to plan it, which is great. But anyway, guys, I'm going to shut up because I've done announcements long enough. All that stuff you can go to the website and check out, or be on the email list and check that out. I think it's going to be an absolutely great show today with our guest. Heather Green is an intuitive guide, channel, animal communicator, energy healer. She's worked as a metaphysical practitioner for 15 years. And Heather has authored For the Love of Horses, an animal communicator's guide to helping our horses and healing our lives. It was released in 2013. And Heather has been on a personal journey of transformation since 2002. And in 2009, Heather started offering the intuitive. Sorry, guys, my tongue tied. The intuitive. And now I lost my place. Holy moly, guys, I'm horrible. All right. 2009, Heather offered her intuitive and energy healing services for people and animals professionally. But I think instead of talking about Heather, I think we just bring her in so she can talk about herself and join us wonderfully. Thank you so much, Heather, for being here tonight. We appreciate you, and thank you for being here.
Thanks, Rob. It's good to be here.
Well, I'm great. I'm grateful for you being here. I've had a chance to know you for a while now, and I really haven't had a chance to explore all of your work. I have had a chance to explore some of it, but I want to make that journey something that we all do together tonight here with all the people who are listening. And I want to start where we always start on this show. Yes, I want to know your story, but that's always something that's asked when people are talking to other people about their spiritual journey and about the work they do. I want to find out what shaped you as a person before you became this person who is channeling and connecting with animals, communication, with doing healing work. What helped in your childhood, your teenage years? What helped kind of shape you? What kind of influences in your life? All of the things that kind of made you be the person who could have a story.
Well, gee, that's a lot to think about. I guess, as a child, I was really sensitive. I was always aware of how other people were feeling. I was psychic in my own way. I just didn't realize I was. I was a big dreamer. I had dreams that would often come true. So that kind of was always something that I knew not everyone could do, and kind of felt special about that. Like, wow, what does this mean for me? And how much that's different than the average person. But also animals were always my comfort. We had a family dog, and I had even aunts and uncles who had dogs and would bring them over. And I always had such a great connection with animals from a very young age. And they brought me a lot of comfort because as you know, when you're really sensitive, sometimes life can be a little challenging. You tend to feel things more deeply. You can feel a lot of the extremes, whether it's really great joy or really deep sadness. So animals were always kind of my balance, way of staying in balance, I should say. And, even as a kid, I remember horse riding. My uncle had horses, and I remember going a few times and riding horses. And that really stands out to me, too, when I look back at my past. And definitely is a foreshadowing for what I ended up doing later on in my healing work. So, that's kind of how, I began my journey. And then I always wanted to help people. So I started in the profession of nursing when I was very young, like in my early 20s. And that was my first career as a nurse. And as a nurse, I segued into the counseling fields because I wanted to help people more. I didn't want to just do physical stuff. I really wanted to get in and help people with mental and emotional issues. So that's kind of how I got going in the healing field. And then the horses came in, and I can get to that a little later, I'm sure, but
Oh
that's
yeah,
just
I've
to
got
get
lots of
started.
questions about that.
Yep, so that's kind of just my early impressions. Yeah.
So let's take a peek at part of that. You said that you just always wanted to help people. Do you remember anything in your life, maybe a person that kind of influenced that with you? Was it something that was just always natural with you? Did you ever have problems you couldn't get help with, and maybe that's what created that dynamic, or do you even know why it existed?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of one of my natural things about me. I'm a very nurturing person. Let's see, I'm the oldest of three kids in my family. I'm the oldest daughter. I have two younger brothers, so I always felt like I kind of looked after them. And just it felt like a natural role to me, just looking after others, caring, wanting to help. Yeah, and now being older and looking back, I understand that I have had a lot of lifetimes as a healer, doing healing work in one form or another. So I think I just came in with that. Honestly, it just came naturally to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something I find more and more with people as I talk to them, that a lot more people now than what it was before just have these natural inclinations, whether it's natural psychic ability, natural understanding that there's a star seed or incarnating here from another. A
Hmm.
lot of these different things, people just said, yeah, I knew it as a kid. And that always blew my mind because it took me many years,
Hmm.
over 30 some years, to get to a point where I even understood that I wasn't supposed to be punching people, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so it's really great to hear that that's kind of a built-in part. So take us then from that point where you joined in nursing, and tell us how you went from that
Mhm.
person to what you're doing now.
No, yeah. So I was a nurse for 13 years. It was definitely a big part of my adult career life. And of course, always wanting to do more, wanting to expand and grow in the healing field, but not really knowing which direction I would head in. One day I remember working and coming into work, and on the counter at the nurse's station, there was a magazine article, and it was flipped open, and it was an article about horses and actually how horses can help us heal in particular. And I just knew, I just looked it up. Read the article during my time at work when I had a break and realized I wanted to check it out. It just felt like it was aligned to me. It was like, wow, this is amazing. Horses had been coming into my dreams, and I couldn't figure out why. And that was all happening right around the same time. I was dreaming of them. I knew they were trying to get through to me somehow. There was a sense of urgency in the dreams, and I was there knowing had some kind of role with them, but not really knowing what it was. And so basically I decided, hey, I'm going to take this workshop, see where it leads. This must be a clue. This must be spirit guiding me in some way. So I did the workshop, and needless to say, one thing led to the next, and more, you want to say, like, it was like a treasure hunt in a lot of ways in the beginning. I knew that horses were part of my forward process in expanding in the healing field, but I didn't know exactly how that was going to look or what role that would take. But in the beginning, I actually offered this kind of healing work called equine facilitated learning. And there's a lot about that in my book for those who want to check it out. For the Love of Horses, it talks about how I really got started in the healing field, from being a nurse to doing that work to doing what I do now. But basically, during the course of discovering, training, I guess you could say, learning about this equine facilitated learning, the horses spoke directly to me. It was then that I got these direct messages from them about what was going on in their lives, their backgrounds, how they were feeling, what they were thinking. And at the time, I was volunteering at a lot of sanctuaries and rescues, and even working with other people's horses just to be able to experience this new form of healing. So I would ask people, does this horse have this background? Because this is what I'm getting from them. And I got all kinds of validation, even very, very early on in this process. I didn't know then that it was animal communication, but I soon figured it out when I started putting pieces together about how the information was coming in and what I was, sharing with people, and how validating it was for them. And it was also not only their information they shared with me, but they showed me how to work with energy as well in order to help heal. And in the beginning, I thought, oh, this is just about horses. They're showing me how to heal them. But ultimately, the healing that they showed me, in being in contact with them, I would say, and interacting with them, I learned how to work with energy in such a way to help them heal. I had had some background in energy healing, but it was more in my own personal journey to help myself. But they were showing me how to do it for them. And then I realized I could apply it to any animal. So in the beginning, it was just animals, but it led to working with humans in the same way. So basically, it was a journey that took probably, I'd say, 2 to 5 years, in me developing it, practicing it. I did a lot of volunteering in the beginning, and then people asking me for private sessions. And that's when I decided, hey, this is going to lead to more. So it was a pretty exciting time, though.
Oh, that's amazing. And normally I don't like to jump forward, but I need to for my own personal curiosity. Um,
Yeah.
Horses are healers. We know this. My son Jeremy used to find the most insane joy on riding the ponies at the fair. And because they saw his condition, we would give them the $5, and then they would just let us ride for like an hour. We really love those fair guys. And
Yeah.
we're getting ready to take Lilith to Adele's horse farm in Sedona.
Mm.
And Adele was the one
Oh,
from, yeah, it
yes.
sounds like you know her. So
I
she's the
know
lady who was
Adele.
on
Yes.
the interview with Ed with the autism communication. And that's the
Mhm.
thing, with Lilith having autism and being horses really are good with kids with autism. What is it about horses that heal humans? What have you found in your
You know,
own intuition and channeling?
there's so much research around it, but what I would say is I think they're the most sensitive beings. They're very, very sensitive animals. They know how we feel. They operate more from a heart-centered place. They don't operate cerebrally the way we do. Our higher mind comes more from our brain, right? We tend to be more brain oriented. They tend to move their function, how they view reality, how they operate in their herd, in their own mechanisms, in groups, and in reality through their hearts. Their hearts lead the way. And that way they can reach us. They bypass our mind and go heart to heart with us. I think also with very sensitive children and those with disabilities, they can be a great grounding rod. They're just so connected to the earth that they kind of help us discharge energy, like really high level energies that we might be carrying in our system that we need to ground and just release. They're really good at that. And it just comes natural to them. So, and I think it's just because they're just so connected to the earth and very earth-like in a lot of ways themselves, even as animals.
Well, it's amazing because I know that
Yeah.
horses have this energy that is just so different from any other animal that connects with humans, like dogs,
Hmm.
cats. They're wonderful.
Yeah.
They provide a whole different type of energy, but horses have unique healing capacity beyond, and I've seen kids with autism or special needs, they connect with these dogs and cats, and it provides great growth and acceleration, but not like the horses do for some reason. And that makes sense, being a function of the heart system and a
Yeah.
grounding to the earth. So that's beautiful. And can you then kind of share with us, because channeling is like, I talk to more channelers than I do probably any other type of person on the show. So let's
Yes.
talk about the channeling. What's the very first time that you understood that you could channel? Tell us about the process that led into that.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting because I would have never thought I would be a channel. Healing made sense. That was my background. I was obviously very psychic as a child, even though I didn't realize I was because I didn't know anyone else that was. I didn't understand it. And then this whole process working with the horses and everything, it made sense. It was a progression. And so I ended up doing energy healing, which I still do with people and animals, and intuitive work, doing readings for people that address all life areas. And then what happened is I started really tuning into more about the ascension that's happening on the planet, moving into this higher density that we're all going through right now. And in that process, I started tuning into I started getting information about the energies and what was going on currently, and realizing, boy, it changes day to day. It changes week to week. We're always going to be in flow in this time, and in that process of just being aware of the cosmic energies and how quickly things can change in our reality, how accelerated this journey really is at this time, and that was even back in 2010. I started connecting with beings from other planetary origins. I had some mentors that were also channelers who connected with Pleiadians and other angelic beings. So they were kind of an influence in my life at that time. But it wasn't until 2014 that I actually remember consciously sitting down and channeling for a group. Now, I started channeling for myself. I would say sometime around 2010, 2011, when I was really tuning into the shifting energies on the planet, but only for me. I didn't share it with my clients. I didn't do it publicly. I didn't do it in groups. And that didn't start until 2014. And the reason I started is I was offering these online Zoom classes where we talk about what's happening with the energies out there and how much that would impact people's lives. People wanted help in the moment, like what's going on right now? What can we all relate to? And I don't mean politics. I mean just energetically, how much shifts in our world with the cosmic energies, the frequencies that alter, our collective consciousness, and how much that alters each of us on a personal level too, with changing, our desires, things we're interested in, career, even soul's purpose development, which is another really big area that I like to talk to people about, health. All those areas come up, with this whole shifting energy. So it was then that I started channeling. And in the beginning, I channeled the ninth dimensional Pleiadian collective, but now I channel the Pleiadian High Council. It switched in that time period, and they made it clear then that it was the council coming through. And ever since, I've been really connected with them. I feel like they're a great group for helping to guide people in this time of ascension because they know what it's like. They've been through it, and they bring in such a unique perspective. I'm sure that you appreciate that too, Rob, being a channel, that these beings from other planets, they bring in a unique perspective that's really easy to use and really helps expand our awareness very quickly.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of the great reasons I love connecting with as many different types of beings that I can, because those different perspectives, even if they're way off of what we think,
Yeah,
or even if
right.
we accept it or say, no, that's messed up, it still
Mhm.
broadens that horizon of the galactic energy of the collective, and what
Mhm.
is kind of in there. What's interesting to me, you said you shifted from that ninth dimensional Pleiadian energy to the Pleiadian High
Yeah.
Council. What's the
Yeah.
difference for those? Because I know some people say ninth dimensional Pleiadian, and that means that it's a non-physical collective. Others say it they're
Mhm.
talking about physical collectives that are non-physical. So
Mhm.
a lot of
Mhm.
different words are used for different things, or the same words
Yes.
for different things. So
Yeah. The ninth dimensional Pleiadian collective, from what I understand, has thousands of Pleiadians in that group. I don't, and they're in the ninth dimension, obviously. And so channels like Wendy Kennedy and even Nora Harold, they're known for they were people that were mentors to me at one time in the beginning of my journey. And so they channeled the ninth dimensional collective. And so I think that I was aligned because they were such a great impression on me at that time. The Pleiadian High Council is a group of 7. And so they're just a small group. And there are some other channels that also channel them out there. I've never asked what dimension they're in, but, they're just a smaller group and they bring through really amazing energy, and it is very similar to other dimensional groups too. As you know, I mean, there's the 12th dimensional Pleiadian collective. There's so many different layers. It just goes up and up and up. So but I believe it's non-physical beings as well. These aren't the ones that are on the ground, walking around, working with us on the earthly plane.
that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah, and that's, I always have to ask because it's everyone's perspective on that is so different. And
Yes.
even the way, it's funny, Treb and Ardif, when they talk about densities, they use the same system, but actually Ardif's is way different than what he shares. But he shares with
Mhm.
Treb's because Treb was the first one who shared it. So he's like, all right, let's just use a system everyone can understand. So even they have a
Yes.
different opinion on what a density dimension looks like,
They
or how
might
many there are,
explain
or
it in a
whatever.
different yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It can be
yeah.
confusing sometimes, yeah.
It is, and thank you for sharing that. And so, when you have the mentors, I know exactly who you're talking about. Wendy's a amazing friend of mine too. I know
Yeah,
Nora,
yeah,
and all of those people being around you. That's what kind of helped you with your personal channeling. So, what was
yeah,
that first personal channeling like? You obviously
yeah.
intended to do it then.
Actually, yeah, I did intend to do it, and for myself, I brought through Archangel Michael,
Oh,
and it was
nice.
pretty shocking and surprising. It was like, "Whoa," when I remember that first time doing it for myself in a group with other people, but it was not I wasn't leading it, I was just in it, receiving. And I channeled Archangel Michael. It was powerful. And I never did it again after that. It was just that first time, it's with him. Then I was more aligned with the galactics. I got fairy energy coming in. I used to channel the fairies a little bit, and they might come and go. I get different groups in there, but primarily now it's been the Pleiadian High Council and the Elohim Angels, which are they're beings of light as well. So I call them angels because they presented themselves as angels to me, but they say they're beings of light. So, they don't always look like angels to people the way we think angels look, but there's
Right.
a lot of different realms of angels. So, yeah, so I got to work with them, and that was around 2017, 2018. And again, it came in more personally in the beginning, but sometimes they do come through when I publicly channel as well. It really just depends. Yeah.
So when you're channeling, how much of your consciousness is there? Are you fully conscious when it's happening?
Yeah, I would call myself a conscious channel, but this is the interesting part because I know you're trans, and I know there's a few other people out there that I know are trans. It's a little bit more rare, it seems, these days, but
Yeah, a lot more
I
rare these days.
yeah, but I do feel there's times when I feel pretty altered, where I feel like it's more of like a dream. I'm not completely out. I'm definitely still there, but you know how when you wake up from a dream, you only remember parts, you get bits and pieces, you don't remember all of it, or
Yeah,
it's fuzzy. So sometimes I feel like I'm a little in between when I do it. Yeah,
I
it's
I'm
interesting. Mhm.
sorry about that. Didn't mean to cut
Yeah.
you off. I notice, for me, I have a classification system that's different. Usually people are like conscious or trans. I call that like a semi-conscious channeler, which
Mhm.
means you're partially there, but partially not. And I
Mhm.
think some of the older channelers like Daryl and Wendy, who've been doing it for a long time, are more like that, where they have moments of in and out.
Mhm.
And I do the dinosaur channeling, I call it, because it doesn't exist. And like everybody I know who's just learned to channel in the last 10 years, conscious channelers, almost
Right.
every single one of them. It just doesn't happen. And I think that's the evolution of consciousness on Earth did that. But I think
Yep.
for my own personal thing, it had to happen that way because I was so um, connected in the earth energy, and I was still so earthly and still so close to that very disconnected lifestyle. Was the only way it was going to work for me. Plus, I'm so mental. My energy
Mhm.
for the mental body is just so heavy. I would never get through a conversation without interrupting. I can do it now. I can conscious channel. I've done it here at home, and me and Kalina, but
Yeah.
I don't do it professionally because it's a trusted, tested, long term thing I've done. So,
Yeah.
but back then I never would have been able to start doing that. So how do you deal with that? Because a lot of people who are
It's
just starting to get channeling, that's their big part
yeah.
is what's
It
me, what's
is.
them, how do I get out of the
It's
way?
it's definitely a good question. Takes practice, and I think, I definitely was self-taught. I didn't really learn from anyone. I had mentors, as I mentioned. I had people that I watched and listened to, and in the beginning I did a couple groups, but mostly, yeah, I just started practicing on my own. I wrote in the beginning. I did a lot of automatic writing. So I wrote messages down in the beginning. And then I even started recording myself, my own voice, so I could hear how it would sound coming through me, and feel how it feels when they're consciously, when you're consciously channeling, how the energy moves through your voice and all the sounds, how it's a little bit different, and just how it feels. So I've gotten used to that. It's just a practice over time. And I've definitely had experienced more time. There's been periods of time when I channeled a lot, and periods of time when I stopped channeling a little bit and focused more on energy healing and my intuitive work. I would change it up a little bit. So, kind of like now I now feel that I'm getting more into the channeling again, getting really back to it. I do a every other month Zoom class, and I always channel in those classes, pretty much the whole class. I channel and I take questions from people and answer through the beings that come through. And I have to say, the Whale Collective, which I'm going to share, I channel them because when I lived in Monterey, I used to live in Monterey, California. I lived next to the ocean, and they started coming through when I moved out there. There was just all these signs from whales and the water, and oh my gosh, it was just really a big experience. It was very mystical. And so, then I started with writing. First, the words came through, and I used to post a lot on Facebook, some of their messages. And then I started channeling them a little bit in my classes, in my Zoom classes. And they're pretty fascinating because when they come through me, especially my last class that I taught, I think it was in September, the last time I channeled the whales, they came through in that class. I feel really altered when I channel them. Like you said, it almost feels like a semi-conscious state. And it's just the way that when they start coming in, I just start going there. I can't, it just happens, and I just let it happen. So I think it's different with each being that you channel. And I also think each person's process of channeling can be so different. It's so unique.
Oh
And so
yeah.
that was mine, and it's still evolving. I mean, it's always like you're growing, you're learning, you change every step of the way.
Yeah,
So,
channeling is a forever school. It's never even though I consider myself pretty uniform. I've done it the same way for years. I continued to do it almost ritualistically in some cases. Just because that's how I'm comfortable doing it, and I know I could shift things or change things. But the evolution of the consciousness that's coming through you becomes different and changed and expanded. But what you said is actually funny. You were feeling my question coming because
mhm.
one of my things I always ask. what is the process to get from
Mhm.
going and living every day, going to a grocery store, getting flipped off in traffic, to going into the channel state? What's the process? How do you get
Oh
there?
gosh. Um, yeah, I try to, I've gone in different times in my life where I've really used it as a way to keep myself balanced. If I had a bad day, if I did come home and I was really heavy, we all have those days where we're just all over the place vibrationally, that I could just tune in to them and start bringing through message. And even if it feels hard at first because your frequency doesn't match theirs, if you really intend to go there, you can. Sometimes, I do a little energy work process with myself where I'll consciously move myself into a higher frequency through my intent and through working with some energy tools that I have available. I'll do that first for about 5 minutes, just so I know I can at least get in that same frequency range enough to be able to actually access them, because then it's a little bit harder. I still think you could do it. I just think it would be harder to let them come through you, and actually speak through you, or really get the message that's coming through if you're writing it. So that's how I used to do it. And now I find less that I have to do much of anything to tweak myself. I can usually just get right into it. Usually I take a few deep breaths, I bring myself into my heart center, and often that's enough. Unless I've had a really bad day, then I have to do something different, but that doesn't happen very often. So, yeah.
So when you're doing it then, now compared to when it was before there
Mhm.
was the tools and the rituals, and now is it just plain intention? I want to connect with this group or this
Yeah.
thing, and then you connect.
Yeah. Yep, and I move into my heart center. I take a few deep breaths. So part of it's breathing. I get really inward, let go of any thoughts. So I do still have a little process, but pretty much my intent. And usually, if I ask for whoever I want to talk to, they'll come in, or sometimes it'll be, whatever group it's going to be. Sometimes they surprise me, but yeah, usually, that's how it works for me. And yeah, even with the Whale Collective, when I started channeling them, I found it interesting that they like to move my body. And I don't know if you see a lot of channels who move their body. I know Daniel
I
Scranton,
was
who
gonna say my good
he
buddy's the best at that.
he moves his arms a lot, and I know him from Ojai, so I remember him from when I lived there. And he's one of them that I know that does move, but otherwise I haven't seen very many channels that actually do move. So, but the whales, when they come through, they move me. So that is something different. Yeah.
Yeah, Treb used to be really bad about doing my body in a circular motion. If you're able to find one of those rare old recordings pre 2013 of me channeling Treb, you would hear my infamous squeaky chair, and it was just king, and that was him doing big counterclockwise circles with my upper body. He still does it. I mean, he still moves the upper body, but it's very, very little circles now. It's most people don't even notice it's happening.
Uh-huh.
But whenever I watch back footage, I'm like, geez, oh, Pete's still doing that. And Ardif
Mm-hmm.
can just sit still as a stone. But yeah, it's it's definitely different when you're pulling in these different energies. So it's good to know, because a lot of people who do conscious channeling kind of describe this, and it's foreign to me because even when I do conscious channeling, I really have to go through my rituals of breathing and neutralizing. So for me, it's kind of it intuitively it makes sense, because that's how channeling works. You connect and you tune into a vibration, and that vibration matches, and then you're able to connect, just like
Mm-hmm.
we do with relationships and everything else in life. But
Mm-hmm.
just the idea of getting yourself tuned to a very specific energy, moving energy, is something you said you learned with the horses. So I imagine that practice of
Mm-hmm.
moving your own internal energy also plays a big part of that. Does that happen now subconsciously?
I don't know, I feel like the horses are still there. They kind of, after I left, after I stopped doing the EFL work, I got into energy work, I got into intuitive, then I did channeling, and then I kind of stepped away a little bit. Of course, I still work with a lot of horse clients, by distance over phone and Zoom, just people who need help with their horses and want my intuitive information on that, or any kind of healing that I can offer. I still do a lot of that. But as far as the role they played early on, yeah, I kind of stepped away from that, but I feel them coming back in. And this is where I think I'm kind of headed now, is been working a lot more with earth energy as we talk about 5D and beyond, and how the earth is really kind of a leader and way shower for all of us. And I think the horses are part of that, kind of like the whale collective. People say, oh, what do they bring in? Well, a lot of those beings are higher dimensional beings that are coming into those bodies to assist with the evolution on the planet right now. They're amazing, wise beings that bring in this just expanding energy and anchoring in light, where they can, as they're navigating the waters on our planet. I also feel like the horses are doing that in their own way with the land as well. And one thing, interestingly, that I've been learning recently is I'm connecting with the cow collective. You might be surprised, but hey, I get animal collectives. They come into my head. They're like, hey,
Uh-huh.
we got something to tell you. And apparently they're anchoring in some divine feminine energy right now for the planet. They're just holding space with that because, again, look at how many cows are on our planet. We have so many cows, right? They're everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And they're anchoring it in to this reality for us so that we can really expand in that way, because the feminine energy is going to lead the way in this new phase, in this new time. So I think it's pretty amazing. I bet the cattle industry doesn't know that, when you think about cows, but I can tell you, I've had some mystical experiences with cows too. They're very tuned in. They're very sensitive animals. And when they find a human that sees them for who they are, they're like, oh my God, look over there. We got to talk to her. Hold on. She speaks our language.
Well,
So,
it makes a lot of sense too, because the cow energy, I never thought of it on in that way or on those types of terms. But when you said that, a lot of things went rolling through my head. Obviously, the Hindu religion seeks, revenance with
mhm,
cow connection, but also something started happening around 2010 to 2013 where cows started doing these weird lining
mhm,
positions in fields. And if they're
mhm,
anchoring energy, it makes sense that they would reconnect with the grid or do something with the
mhm.
electromagnetic energy where most of that etheric grid runs through. So that makes a lot of sense. And I did want to talk to you too about the animal communication, because that is something that a lot of people here are really excited to talk about. But um,
Oh,
when you're
yeah.
connecting with the animal consciousness, is this very similar to channeling? Is it something totally different? How does that work?
Yeah, in a way, I definitely think it's similar, and I think it was a precursor, or I could say whatchamacallit, foreshadowing of my work with channeling, because I started with the animal communication. Um, and it can be different, there can be, because I'm so psychic too, I get a lot of psychic impressions no matter what. Some animals want to talk more than others. Some are like, even when I work with some animals, I'll be like, okay, hi, how you doing? Your human wants me to ask you how you're doing. And they're like, what? Like, who's talking to me? They're just not used to it. And others are like ready to just dive right in and share all this juicy information. They can't wait to talk, and they've been waiting. And oh my gosh, they know that their human made the appointment. They can't wait to tell you what's going on. So it's kind of like the variety of, like, with humans, you get a variety of different animals too, and their levels of awareness and what they're ready to share and how deep they go. But yeah, I think it's also tuning in. It's like really honing in on an energy that, how can I say it? You're just sensitive to what's dropping in to your awareness, and you can you're like an antenna that picks up a frequency, and you can discern that it's that particular frequency. I mean, obviously, if I had a session with a dog, I know it's going to be the dog, but you also get really specific signs too. So yeah, I think the animals kind of help me to get prepared for that, because in some ways I think animal communication and doing readings for animals is a lot more, you have to be really focused, you have to be really good to do it. It's a more challenging area, I would say, than regular readings. Like if you're just doing a reading for somebody about their life or something, it's a little bit more fine-tuned and to the point. And I also think channeling is that way too. So I would say, yeah, if that,
Okay. Yeah,
yeah,
that makes sense. So it's basically just the tuning into the vibration of that specific animal, and then you have a
yeah,
telepathic connection to that being and can
yes.
communicate.
Telepathic, I would say I definitely do. It's definitely mind to mind. In the beginning when I work with horses, when they started talking to me, I would literally see their heads pop in. Like their head would pop into my head.
Oh,
And it was
wow.
like they're dialing my number. I felt like they're calling me, caller ID where you see your friend's picture pop up, on your phone. It was like that. I'm like, oh my God, it's that horse that I just was, hanging out with today at the sanctuary. Wow. And then I would just tune in like you pick up a phone, hello, and then you're tuned into that being who has something to share with you. And then you're focused in on what's being shared. Is it pictures? Is it emotions, thought forms that come in? Because I used to use my body a lot like a sensing tool. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? And that was all part of how I knew they were communicating with me in that way, about how they felt and what they were thinking and what was going on for them. But now it's just like like a stream of consciousness. It comes in like messages. It's gone, deeper, because I've been doing it for so many years now that it just happens. But often I'll say their name 3 times when I start, and that helps me make the connection as well. So it's just kind of a practice I've gotten into. If I'm going to connect with someone's dog, and then I say their dog's name 3 times and make that intent to connect with them telepathically, and then that's usually how it goes. So that's how I
That's
do
gr
it.
that's amazing, yeah. I seen a video with an animal communicator who is communicating with this black panther, and
Uh-huh.
this black panther said that they didn't like their name. Have you ever experienced something like
Mm-hmm.
that where animal says, "Hey, this specific collar or name or stupid game we
Yeah.
play is not fun?"
Yeah, I've had, and I was surprised too, because in the beginning, when I first started doing this work, I never thought that an animal would care. This is where I was back then. I mean, go figure, this is like 20 years ago or whatever. Now, yeah, yeah, they do. And when I first started, when I did that first EFL workshop, one of the horses that was part of that had been brought to that person that was doing the workshop, with a name that was really terrible name. And I picked up, she changed the name anyway, but I had picked up like, oh, I don't think he likes his name. And she said, yeah, you know why? Because it was this. And I'm like, oh yeah. So I picked that up on a horse that I worked with in the very, very beginning. And then I think I had a client once that, I don't know what the name were. They just didn't know what to call their cat. I think it was a cat, and I can't remember if it was like they called it Trouble, or I don't know what. It was just kind of a joke. And I said, no, you might want to give it a different name, him a different name, because he feels bad, like, is he trouble? Is he the bad guy all the time? So,
Aw.
sometimes we make it lighthearted, but if you've had trouble, especially an animal that has a troubled background or history, sometimes it's a good idea to not give them, you might even want to change their name. If you adopt an animal and now they're not with that human anymore, maybe they had a hard time with that human. Maybe they were abandoned or were out on the street or whatever, give them a new beginning. I think that's a good idea. It doesn't necessarily have to happen for all animals, but I think, yeah, in a lot of cases it does. But if you're really tuned in, you'll know if your animal really, it's like, hey, this is how I feel I am, they'll show you that new side of them that will, I think inspire you to maybe have a different name for them or change something about it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that makes sense. And we had a question from our resident animal enthusiast, Joe Grace,
Oh,
who's our wonderful animal lover in the group. And she asked, "What's the most unusual animal that you've ever communicated with?"
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think about that. I've communicated with a few birds, and that was some interesting experience. I will say that I think this one stands out to me, that I had a client who had a bird who, everyone who has birds, they're in a cage in your house. If they're domestic birds, they're usually in a cage somewhere. And that particular bird was like, really wanted to get my attention, was like, oh my God, thank goodness someone's listening to me. I have so much to say and nobody's paying attention. He was just like really stomping up and down to get people to notice him, and just wanted to be heard, and actually had some really great wisdom to share with the family. And wanted to have a little bit more attention. Like they kind of put him on the back burner, like he wasn't really part of the family. He was more like in the background, or maybe just a little bit here and there. And it can be easy to do that with animals, when especially with families that are really busy. Even sometimes dogs and cats get put in the background. They're like, okay, they start blending in because the kids are taking up a lot of space or whatever. But
Yeah.
I would say I was just so surprised at the information that came through, and the level of, emotional intensity, and like, devotion to the family, and a desire to be more connected. All of those feelings that we tend to associate with humans, that really came through in that bird, so.
That's amazing. I really love the idea of communication with animals. And
Mhm.
our last cat, who passed almost a couple years ago at this point, she was amazing and had been with Kalina for so long. And after Lily came, because of all of her surgeries and all of her appointments, we could really tell she just wasn't as happy about,
Yeah.
life in general, because she wasn't getting the amount of attention she was used to. And it was so sad for us. And we tried to work that in,
Mm.
and she ended up passing. But she was an old kitty, and she was a wonderful kitty cat, and we really loved her too. She
Oh,
was great. Do you have any animals then, of your own? And if
yeah.
so, I imagine you guys are chatting a lot.
Oh, yeah. I have a cat right now. I used to have horses at one time, but they were all older, and they were part of my healing program. And so the two older ones have since passed on because they were up there in age anyway. And then I had a third one that I was leasing. So that wasn't my horse, to have forever anyway. So I ended up giving that horse back to her owner when I finished that program. And it was pretty amazing to have those horses. I'll never forget the experiences that I've had with them, and just the biggest hearts ever, and the deepest connection that I can really say that you would never think is possible sometimes with animals, that they really cross those boundaries into sometimes beyond what humans can really do, really, even the humans you're closest to. So, but now I have a cat, and his name's Toby, and he's got quite a personality. Most people who know me have, heard about him at one time or another. Even my clients, when I do classes, Zoom classes, oftentimes he'll pop in the Zoom class because he likes to be part of it. And yeah, so yeah, we talk a lot. I feel like we have a really close connection, and there's a lot of love there and a very strong bond. Because, I got him from an older landlady when I was living in Monterey. It was her cat, and they didn't really connect. And so he started gravitating towards me, and then she ended up telling me, hey, if you want that cat, take him, because we don't get along, it's not working out. So
Oh.
and I know he felt like he didn't belong, so him and I, we just really bonded. And yeah, and he was living like a feral cat in the beginning, so he was outdoors quite a bit. And since then, and he's still an outdoor cat at least part of the time, but he has become so domesticated since being with me. Like, he'll snuggle in the house, he'll be in the house, he can calm down and sleep the whole night through. He never used to be able to do that. He'd have to go outside, and they'll 30 times in the night, let me out, that whole feral thing. So he's changed a lot over the years, and I definitely feel like he's blessed my life in a lot of ways too, just having him as my companion, because I've definitely been through a lot of changes in the last 5 years that I've had him. So
Well, that's
yeah.
amazing. And you're right. So, I know a lot of people, especially people who have some emotional difficulties in communicating with people, I've heard the term "I like animals better than people" a million times,
Yeah.
and that's because they're
Yeah.
real and they're natural. So, by learning to communicate with animals and having this cat for 5 years, do you ever like argue with each other, or does he ever
Oh,
tell you something that
oh, yeah.
uh, on his
And
mind?
I've always had cats. I mean, it's just like I've had so many cats, like they pick up like when he came into my life, my other cat that I had was passing. He knew, it's like one was leaving, the next one comes in. So, yeah, I've had a lot of cats in my life, but yeah, he kind of knows what's going on for me, but he used to fight with me a lot, like whenever we'd move somewhere new and I'd keep him in, like, okay, just wait. We just moved. Wait a minute. Let's make sure you know that you're in a new house and this is a new yard, this is a new neighborhood. And he would get so frustrated. Let me out. Come on, let's go. And he gets mad at me. He doesn't like to have to stay in, but I'm in a situation now where I live in a house with other people at this time, and I can't leave him just roaming free when I'm not home. So he has to be inside when I'm gone a lot of times. And it's actually better for him because I live in Sedona and it's very remote out here where I'm living, and it's not the safest place for cats to be. So I'm okay with him being inside at least part of the time. And he's started to adjust now a little bit better. But if he gets cooped up inside too long, he'll get mad and he'll just have his way with me, like, get me out of here. So he definitely has a tantrum. He has a temper, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Sedona was kind of a very
Hmm.
wild place with the life that are around there, like spiders, scorpions, thing. I knew
Oh,
that those
yeah.
types of things existed, but I didn't realize mountain lions were around there too.
Oh, yeah,
I was
and
like, holy moly!
coyotes in our back. I mean, they're next to our cars where we park. They're right there. They'll come right up. And it's just a fact of life. Like that's where they are, and I have to accept it because I'm not going to make him be inside all the time. I know he would not be happy, and I want him to be happy. I'd rather see him be free, even if it means his life's not going to be, super duper long. But I am also balancing it. He's in the house half the time. And I think that's good. And he's always in the house at night too. So
I've
yeah.
always respected people who allowed their cats to be cats too, because it is hard. It's like a child. You
Mm,
want them to be safe. You want them to be in eyesight. You want them to be around you, but you
yeah.
also know, they've got to do their own thing too sometime. Um, so I want as much as I could talk to you about animals, I want to talk to you too about the work with Earth that you have been doing.
Yeah.
First of all, what's the specifics? Like, what are you doing to kind of help
Hmm.
connect people to that, and what's the process? Like, what's the actions that you take with that work?
Yeah. So, and many people may have heard the terms earthwork or grid work, thrown out there, gatekeeping. In the beginning, and I was doing a lot of this work since 2010 because I was called to, just assisting the earth in her transformation. And even back then, assisting her in her evolutionary process, anchoring in the light frequencies and codes that are needed to help her transform and hold solid and steady with everything going on, all the grids, the supporting the ley lines, which are the the energy meridians of Earth, so that things can stay balanced and that she can progress in her evolution. Now that was back in 2010. Um, how can I explain now? Now she's so far advanced in her evolutionary process. She's 5D and beyond. So she's actually doing so great being that way shower to all of us of where we're headed. I still feel like we need to still anchor in light and work in certain areas of the earth to help with the consciousness of humanity. And even fault lines, people who've done work with that. I haven't done that so much, but a little bit here and there where you can support fault lines, because if it's a huge earthquake, it could wipe out a lot of people or cause a lot of problems. So you can, when you do earthwork, you can do it in so many different ways. But yeah, because of my background in energy healing, it came naturally to me anyway. So in the beginning, I was doing a lot of you working with the earth the way I work with people when I do energy healing. So I was just doing it with her, Mother Gaia, what do you need? Okay, let me help you with that, kind of thing. But now, really, I feel like it's more of a partnership with Gaia because she's showing us, hey, we can shift over to this other reality. We don't have to look at, through the old lens of 3D. Let's bring our attention over here. And more of those new higher frequencies are being amplified in our reality. We're seeing more of the 5D Earth. That's the whale collective coming in and offering their insights. That's the horses and the 5D nature of the cows that are anchoring this divine feminine frequency. It's right in front of us. And I think the more we pay attention to that, the bigger it gets. So the more that we can support those aspects and coming forward and amplify some of those energies that are ready to be released, so that all the beings in the collective consciousness can benefit from that. That's really kind of where I feel like it's at this point.
Uh,
So.
I I love that. I love the idea of that too. Because I know a lot of people when they talk about working with the earth, they're talking about drastically different ideas. But I love the idea of
Hmm.
just working directly in that way. For
Yeah.
for people who do grid work too, there's a lot of people who do it in different ways. Some people do ceremonies, some people go
Yep.
and anchor, some people move
Yep.
to locations. So we've got all these different types of grid workers and energy workers that go to assist the grid. What advice can you give someone who's doing that and it's been hard on them? Because I've heard that complaint with a
Oh,
lot of grid workers, like
yeah.
I give so much of myself to it, you know?
Totally. I'm glad you said that too, because that is an important thing to share, that there's many different ways to work with the earth, as you shared. Some people do ceremony. Some people, they know that they're being guided to open a portal. There's times that I would get specific information in meditation about where to go. This highway, go there. They would give me like a map, and it was even in places I didn't even know very well. And so I was like really clear of what I needed to do. And some people really get that guidance too. And for others, if you're not super clear about what you're supposed to be doing or where you're supposed to be going, but you just want to help, just use your intent, use your desire to be in service, and do what you already know. And consider it a connection that you have to earth. If you love the earth, if you benefit, you recognize you're grateful for all the earth offers you, start with that. And anyone with any kind of healing background should be able to do it without a problem, because you just get right in there and get going. You can use any tools that you already have. But yeah, as far as being exhausted by it, I would say, and I've pretty much never felt that. I always feel uplifted when I'm doing energy work with the earth. But I would say, don't make sure you're not taking it on. Probably what's happening is they're taking on some of this energy from the earth or even from the collective, because some of that's in the earth or in this, 3D reality sphere that we're in. If you're taking it on, you can be drained by it. It can be overwhelming. So you want to take the time to clear your fields. Hopefully, if you're doing any kind of energy work, you know how to clear your fields every day, because that's an important thing. Because usually people who do this kind of work are very empathic, and you're going to naturally pick up things that aren't yours. So you just want to make sure you're not doing that. Get lots of rest. Don't overwork yourself. Just do it when you feel called to do it. Do it when you want to. So
That makes a
yeah.
lot of sense, and I think the people who I've talked to when it comes to their things that they're going through with feeling hardship, I think because they've taken such an identity towards being a grid worker, and
Yeah.
they put in all the time and energy and might not necessarily see the effect
Mhm.
that they had hoped in the local
Yep.
areas that they're working on. Like, hey, there's still violence and crime, but
Mhm.
I always try to tell them that's not, Earth knows what to do with that energy. It just helps to guide that energy to the places.
Exactly. Yeah, she's an empowered being, we have to remember that. We don't have to rescue. We're just being an assistance and really allowing more of that 5D energy to shine through the 3D collective consensual reality that we're in at this point. It's confusing because it's 3D and 5D. We're all vacillating in those energies, but really just seeing her as the being she is. I had channeled her in one of my Zoom classes that I did, I think at end of 2022. And I was surprised at what she, came through and said, I'm in a really great place. I'm in bliss. I'm in joy. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm doing great. If you want to help, be a leader, live your dreams, show others the way, role model to others what it's like to be more aligned with the 5D energies, and really uh, use your life as an example for that. That was part of what she shared. And I was pretty blown away by that too, because I didn't, I had no idea what would come through. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's amazing, and it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense, and it aligns with everything I've ever heard. I've even heard Art tell people, a lot of people worry about, a human impact on Earth, and Art's like Earth
Mm-hmm.
was there before you and will be there after you, and although you might change things on Earth, you cannot drastically
Yep.
destroy or create something there beyond what the Earth's consciousness is wanting or willing to do. So it makes a lot of
Yep.
sense too. So another question I have for you, because you said, this Earth being both 3D and 5D. I've heard a couple philosophies on this. Some people say
Mm-hmm.
Earth is in all the dimensions and that
Mm-hmm.
we're just able to peek at those parts, and other people say that it's in the same dimension that we as humans are and that it evolves with us. Is it both
Ah.
of those things, or is it one of those things from your understanding?
I don't see her in 3D anymore. I see her 5D and above. So she's gotten, and she's in a lot of the higher dimensions, but we're still co-creating this reality in 3D yet as humans, and we're still trying to figure that out and work through it. And that whole timing is, I don't know, that part. But I do know that the 5D Earth, is very connected to us and where we're living right now. And that energy shines through our reality. And that's where it's like, wow, we can be in a 3D world and still feel these 5D energies coming from Earth, or even higher than that, because she's in a lot of other higher realms as well. So that's where it gets confusing. It's like, well, where are we, but there's the 3D experience, there's the 4D bridge that gets us from 3D to 5D, and why we can experience like a 5D experience of living even though the world is still 3D. Does that make sense? I know it
Yeah.
sounds kind of,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Art have said something a long time ago that made sense to me is, humans have been so worried about going from one density or dimension to the next, but the fact is you're already there in that fourth density and fifth
Mm-hmm.
dimensional energy.
Mm-hmm.
You're just connecting to the creation of third density because it's ingrained in your society and because
Yep.
of our
Yep.
evolution being kind of jumped ahead when, with earlier parts of our history. So yeah, it definitely makes a ton of sense, and aligns a lot with what I understand too. So people can experience that 5D when they want to. They just have
Yep.
to learn how to live in that. So
Yep.
what's the tools that you've learned to do that? What's the tools that your guides have shared with you or your intuition has found?
Yeah, I would say do your own personal inner work. It's kind of the mantra of most healers, but it's what I found has helped me the most to be as aligned to 5D. And of course, it's a process. The reason we have 4D is to get prepared so it's not so shocking to go from 3D all of a sudden you're in 5D. It's such a huge leap, right? So you have a chance to get used to it and kind of go back into 3D and, oh, okay, yeah, this is what I know and it's familiar, and then 5D until you're ready to be fully 5D. And that's a whole process that'll involve our bodies too. Like we have to be, our bodies are changing and becoming more crystalline, and that's a whole process that we're undergoing. And that can take some time too. So again, I don't necessarily know timing on all this, and it's different for everybody. But as far as moving more into 5D consciousness, I would say work on your issues, work on your patterns, whatever methods work for you. Whether you do energy healing, if there's a different healing modality you like to use, whether, if you like counseling or groups, you work together, work in groups, or channeling. Channeling, I think, is so amazing because you're getting information, you're also getting a transmission from these beings that exist in higher dimensions. They're kind of opening up a doorway to make it easier to align with 5D and some of these higher dimensions. So, but I think for everyone it's different. So you have to find your own path to get there. But your intent is to do your work, you know, that you're going to take responsibility for what you have to do to shift yourself. And I mean, if we were all doing that, we'd be in a different world already, you know? So,
Oh, for sure.
yeah.
Uh, and maybe this question is something that you won't be able to answer, but I want to ask it anyway because I see connections when it comes to our physical experiences versus our spiritual. There's always a bridge, a connection, direct link, actually. You know, where
Mm-hmm.
spirit lives, physical exists and manifests from. So the a lot of people have had fear recently about the electromagnetic grid weakening. They say it's the weakest it's ever been, and the solar activity is the highest it's ever been. To me, I don't have
Mm.
fear there at all because
Mm-hmm.
I see it as part of a shift. Do you think that directly correlates with this vibrational shift of people and the earth, or just people,
Yeah.
or just the earth?
I definitely think so. All of it. And even the sun, you know, the sun is going through his, if you want to call it a he, Solaris or whatever you want to call the sun, is, you know, definitely going through a transformation too. So all of it, you know, all this energy around our whole solar system. And yeah, I think that a lot of that is based on the transformation and moving in a higher frequency. And even, you know, the way power works with, you know, our internet and different things. You know, people have talked about, well, could the internet go down? And yeah, I mean, imagining just from all these higher frequencies coming onto our planet bringing this change for us. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that we haven't had some of that happening. Well, we do have glitches here and there, right? You
Sure.
know, and they watch, you know, even when they fly planes, they watch to make sure it's not a huge solar storm or what's the level. You know, they watch those levels as far as solar activity and flares, and making sure that it's not too high of a level where it would be unsafe to fly. You know, they do that for a reason. So NASA is even aware of a lot of this. They know stuff's happening. They know this is unusual activity with the sun. I mean, it's more intense than it's ever been, I should say. But yeah.
Yeah, they've got a whole space weather monitoring agency for that type of stuff, and that's why they're able to tell us too when we're getting those amazing northern lights further south than they should be, or not that they
Mm-hmm.
should be, but they normally are. I had an interesting conversation with a guy about electromagnetic energy because I feel like electromagnetic energy is the seeable, feelable, perceivable, measurable thing that our grid actually is. It's one and the same, um, which makes sense to me. And I don't know if you feel that way or not, but he said that the electromagnetic energy is not understood because it's plasma that runs through that, and it's plasma that exists and creates the forces for everything that we see, and a lot of the physics behind it are misunderstood. And it was a very scientific conversation, but um,
Whoa.
yeah, it was pretty
Yeah.
deep. But have you ever heard of anything spiritually based to the idea
Mm-hmm.
of plasma or the
Mm-hmm.
sun's specific energy?
I have. Yeah, I have heard that the sun is releasing plasma, and plasma even coming in through even the rain and water, and that it's very connected to 5D, and it's helping to bring in the frequency, that 5D higher frequency. So it's all part of that, higher frequencies, more of the crystalline energy being activated on our planet and in our nature too, and everything around us. So yeah, it is part of it. And you know, when people think about the sun, when we have these solar flares and the geomagnetic activity, it can be a little hard on our system because yeah, it's the sun. It's like radiation, you know, it's a, you know, it's coming, but not to be afraid of it. It's all helping us in our transformation. It just doesn't always feel pleasant because we're electromagnetic too. We're moving from electromagnetic to crystalline, and that's a process, almost like turning a coal into a diamond, you know? It's so that's why it goes slow over time, why it's not an overnight experience. And we all have different, we detox in these processes. We all have different timing on how fast do we go, and maybe my body would respond differently than somebody else's body would and would need extra care and attention. And I think that's important for people to consider right now with everything happening.
Yeah,
you know
is that kind of like a lot of people call it ascension symptoms? You see these types of
right.
things that happen physically to the body that are related
Hmm.
to electromagnetic energy, solar energy, or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
is that kind of one and the same? That's the transitional energy pouring into the body, and the body trying to adjust for the crystalline shape.
Yeah, in a fashion, I would say, yeah, it is an ascension symptom in that you're going to have detox like symptoms because your body's got to purge when you get hit with the flares or the changes in the Schumann resonances or whatever. It's altering your field. It's ultimately helping you clear out what no longer serves. I mean, that's the best way to put it succinctly, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, the karma, if you want to call it that. You know, it's like you can't really hide from your stuff anymore. If you're an awake human on this planet, you're going to go through your process. Everyone's going to go at their own timing, but this is it. We're here for this ride. So I feel like the sun energy, the flares, all the stuff coming off the sun, the plasma, and then the frequencies coming in, that are coming from the center of the galaxy, even onto the planet and everything, and affecting our collective consciousness. That's all part of it too. We're getting these downloads and light activations that are helping us, in our evolution to becoming more crystalline. But it changes our whole level of consciousness, obviously. So yeah, I think it's more like a detox symptom, like you feel like you're detoxing, like you need to rest, you're tired, maybe emotionally you feel a little wrung out, and you need to rest, like that. That's just part of the process, and everyone can expect they're going to have their own version of that, going on. So
Yeah, and I've noticed even people who are not spiritual at all, who are very earth based and very connected to just very earthly things. They're not even going past
mhm.
their heart chakra energetically, and even they're being forced with
Yep.
these revelations. And even though they're not, oh
Yep.
my God, my soul, this or that, they're still like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I need to be a better person, or oh my God, I need to
Right.
pay more attention to my kids, or whatever it is. And I've
Mhm.
seen that happen a lot too. We're getting to that time for the lightning round, so I wanted to ask you if it's all right to ask you maybe 5 or 6 benevolent questions aimed for one purpose only, and that purpose is to get to know you as a human. We got to know you as as the channeler, as an animal communicator, as a grid worker, as an earth connector, as all of these different things, but we want to get to know you as a person too a little bit. Is it all right if we do some of those?
Yeah, sure, as long as they're benevolent, as you say.
They are benevolent. I've only had
Yeah.
one bad reaction to one, and that's the last question. And it's if any question doesn't feel good, just say pass, and we'll go past it. Okay, but they're all benevolent, promise.
Okay.
I know that makes people nervous when I bring. I just had,
Yeah.
and I'll explain it to you when we get to the question. But um, what's your favorite color?
That's kind of a tie because there's 2 colors I really like, pink and blue. So I'd say both of them. I like them both the same.
Have you ever thought of merging them both into one color?
I don't know what that would look like. I've never tried pink and blue together, but
I don't either, but I think it'd be a cool color, right?
yeah, I like wearing them sometimes together. I know that sounds like they're not really complementary, but sometimes it looks good if, like a really light pink and a little blue to kinda make it stand out. I don't know. It's kinda
Oh, yeah,
nice.
yeah. No, I can
Yeah.
see those colors working together. Kalina is a walking rainbow, so I've seen every
Yeah.
color that people thought never should be together
Yes.
together. She makes it work, so, um,
Mhm.
what is your favorite food?
I'd say any kind of pasta. But right now I'm trying a new recipe on vegetarian lasagna. It's pretty good, so I'm kind of into that right now. But
I've had some good ones,
mm,
vegetarian lasagnas before, really good.
mhm.
Alright, well, thank you for that, and then what is your favorite, band and or song?
Well, I do like a lot of angel music, so I'll say that. I just love to listen to, people who have a voice much like the angelics, or even meditation music that has angels or their frequency in there. But as far as bands, like older bands kind of stuff, I like Sarah McLachlan, and let's see, Mazzy Star. Old U2 is some of my favorite, but I mean older, like in the 80s. I don't like their new stuff. So, and Kate Bush.
Nice. Mazzy Star did one that I really loved. I didn't get a lot into her music, but the Into Dust song is one of the songs that actually makes me emotional every time I hear it.
Yeah, she's got a lot of spiritual songs, if people really listen. There's a lot of different meanings in there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. And yes, we are live. I saw that, Anna. Yes, we are live. Don't worry, you didn't miss everything. You can always go back and listen to. So thank you for being here as you can. The next question then is, what is your favorite animal?
Oh gosh, that's so hard. How can I pick an animal? Well, I would just, if I have to narrow it down, I would say cat, because I've just had so many cats in my life that I really think cat energy has been like, like my cats have been like my familiars. They've been my protectors. And I think just because they've overlapped pretty much my whole life as an adult. We didn't have a cat when I was a kid, but we always had a dog. But yeah, I would say cat. They're just really mysterious, and they're just amazing companions. They're truly devoted. If you're loyal to a cat, they're going to be loyal to you, and if you have that bond, it's never broken. And they don't make a bond lightly. A dog might love anybody, but not a cat.
Oh,
They're
you have to
picky.
earn it.
Yeah, that's for sure. So, yeah.
Well, that's the thing I love about cats too. And Kalina made a recommendation because you like angelic music. Lee Harris,
Oh.
his music. I don't know if you've heard
Oh
it.
yeah, I've heard some of his. Yeah, but I didn't know he did angelic pieces.
Yeah, yeah. I
Mm.
don't know either. I'm not super familiar with his music, but the ones I've heard, I've always loved. But um, yeah, he's got a great voice. Um, let me see. I know I'm missing one. Okay, let's go to, out of all the places you've ever been in nature, what is your favorite place for both the beauty and the feeling of that land?
Ooh, that's a tough one because I've been some beautiful places. But the one that's jumping out in my head right now, and I did live there, well, I lived near there, is Big Sur in California. It's just absolutely incredibly beautiful. You've got the redwoods, and you've got beautiful ocean, and it's just such a unique energy in that area. And the land feels incredible too. It's just all of it. So
I've
heaven
never
on
been
earth.
there. I've never been there, but I hear they make amazing water beds.
Oh,
Sorry, that's a horrible joke.
oh,
Yeah, that's a
yeah.
horrible joke. They used to do the Big Sur beds and the
Oh,
naked water beds
yeah.
in the 80s. It was great.
That's
I
funny.
remember
Yeah.
floating those, just loving it. Last question, and this is the one that caused a bit of an emotional response in one or two people
Oh,
just because they didn't have very good childhoods. But the question
oh.
is, what is your favorite childhood memory?
Well, actually, the one that stands out when I think about that, that's a toughie, but when I was a kid, and all of us as a family, we used to watch The Wizard of Oz. I don't know if you ever remember that movie. It was like a
Oh
big
yeah.
deal. When that was on, we all kind of got together, and we ordered pizza from this local pizza company that was really good. They had like a pizza called Taco Pizza. And I don't know if you've ever
Oh
had that
yeah.
anywhere, but it was so good. I remember as a kid, I really enjoyed that. And I really loved the movie. So it was a special time for us as a family, and a really happy memory. So yeah, that
Oh,
stands out to me.
well,
Hmm.
thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. And yeah, when you any type of pizza you can think of, I've had because that's my food of choice is pizza.
Is it?
And I can't do it as much as I used to. It's carbs and me don't get along very much anymore. But
Yeah, I
uh,
get it.
I'm a pizza connoisseur. I really love. And the guy who's bringing me over to Connecticut to do the event, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's like the pizza capital over here," and I was like, "Shut up! I don't even
Oh,
want to know about that."
no.
Yeah, because I'm gonna eat a lot of people
Wow.
up in there, I'm sure. But yeah, Wizard of Oz too, one of Kalina's favorites too. So
Oh,
I've seen it many
yeah.
times before I met her, but also a few times after. So um, all right, well that's it for the lightning round. Before we get to it, I want to give you some time to just kind of tell people how to get a hold of you and all that stuff. But before we do that, I just want to say thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for sharing. I really enjoyed our communication tonight, and I've also enjoyed getting to know you throughout the years and getting to connect with you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate sharing the insights that you did. It's given me new things to think about, and that's always a positive bonus. But just
Mhm.
thank you for being available. And I know we've got some links in the description, which all of you can find, whether you're here live or whether you're watching it back at a redistributed time. But can you share with us how to get a hold of you, how to contact you, where to find your work, what you're doing, what you got coming up?
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. And yeah, thanks again. It was a joy to be on the show, and it's been good seeing you over the years too. And I know I'll see you again in Sedona when you're out here in March. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna be there. I'm gonna be there too. So I'll see you there. But
nice.
great. So as far as getting a hold of me, yeah, my website is Teal Healing, and that's teal like the color, Teal healing.com. And that's where all my stuff is pretty much on there, all my services that I offer, any kind of information about me. You probably have all the links to my other social medias there so people can follow me there. I post a lot and bring through a lot of information, kind of like I did today in this tonight in this live show. And I'm actually going to be doing an upcoming Zoom class. So I wanted to promote that tonight. It's going to be on this Sunday, February 18th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And it's going to be the focus of it will be on soul's purpose, which I know is a big topic for a lot of people who want to really step into doing more of what they came here to do, or be actually being and expressing who you really are in this world. And you can check that out on my website. It's on the writings page. It's the very first post. It's an easy introduction to soul's purpose. It'll be an hour and a half class, and I'll be channeling in it as well. I'll be bringing through the Pleiadian High Council and the Elohim Angels, and just bringing whoever wants to come in for that to share some information that might help people with that. And that one's just a $22. So it's a great introduction to soul's purpose, because I am offering an extended Soul's Purpose program as a separate offering. And that's a 4-week online class. And that's a whole different thing, which again, you could check that out on my website. It's on my writings page. But just wanted to tell you guys about that, because the Zoom classes are fun. You get a lot of great information from the higher dimensionals, and you can also ask your personal questions. I always tell people, bring personal or worldly questions, and it can be related to the theme, which in this case is soul's purpose, or it could be something you just want to ask about your own life. So they're always a lot of fun. Hope you guys can be there for that.
Oh, that's amazing. And the one thing I like about groups like that too is that you get to meet new people who have common interests and who have common connections, and
Yeah.
everyone who's there for that same purpose, the theme or otherwise, just to hang out with cool, high vibe people. It definitely makes for a good
Mm-hmm.
future, especially in the community where it's not always easy to connect with people. I know, like in Sedona, it's probably not so hard, but there are
Right.
places around the country, like where we live, where there's a small
Mm-hmm.
community and we never get to connect with them. So, yeah, I think that's amazing. And again, I want to thank you for coming on. And everyone, if you want to check out the links, for Heather, go check those out. Go to her website and check out the class this weekend if you want. And it would be amazing. Thank you again for being here. I really appreciate your time and your energy and being here.
Yeah, thanks again so much, Rob. It was a lot of fun.
It was great. And I look forward to seeing you in Sedona here next month too.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you all too for coming here, for listening, all of you in the chat. who are always active, who are always sharing and caring and loving and sending love and getting love. And I really appreciate all of you guys for being a part of this. And I want to thank all of you for being here for our 200th episode. Crazy. This used to be a monthly and now it's a weekly. And we've got the 200. That's insane. You guys have been a huge part of that. So thank all of you for being here. And I can't remember if I have a guest next week or not, but if I don't, we might just celebrate with 201. But thank you all for being a part of it. And thank you also, Kalina, for showing up today, too. I know you were busy working with Lily's video stuff. So thank you, Sunshine, for coming. And she is right. Heather is awesome. Thank you for sharing with us tonight,
Oh,
Heather.
thank you,
Always great.
Kalina.
She's amazing. She can't help it. She's just built that way. Amazing, right? But I
That's
love you
sweet.
guys. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. We'll see you guys next week, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific, every week on the Enlightenment Evolution Hour. I'm your host, Rob Goth here, the ET Whisperer. I love you all. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week on the other side, guys. Bye.
Bye.